Well, we flattened the curve. That was the message from New Brunswick's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jennifer Russell, today. New Brunswick is entering its third week of no confirmed cases of COVID-19. That's good news, continuing to widen the gap from other provinces. But in an effort to return to some kind of normal, are we putting workers at risk? Is it too soon? Let's find out. New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs joins us now to discuss. First of all, Premier, good to see you, and good news coming out of your province, which is great comparative to other parts of the province. Can you describe to our viewers what your province, given this news, is doing? How open will you be?
Good evening, Evan. And I guess what we're doing primarily is trying to balance between continued health being a priority in our province and not losing the condition we have right now, and no new cases and no active cases. And so it's we don't want to lose that, but we know there's a risk of reopening. But we also know that if we don't focus on our economy, that there's a risk of a lot of other things in relation to people's everyday lives and moving forward. So we're trying to balance that, but continuing on with the health and the mandate from public health. And our focus is going to be now to open up under those guidelines, open up in a way that we continue to protect New Brunswick citizens. Our borders will continue to be a main focus for us to understand who is coming through our province or coming into our province and for what reasons. We'll continue very strong diligence at our borders.
Okay, so you don't have cases for 2 weeks. Is this the new normal, Premier, or can you just kind of open everything? Hair salons, golf courses, can people go to hockey rinks or something? I mean, when are we back to what it was pre-COVID in your case?
When there's a vaccine. In this case, what we're doing is basically allowing to open up our society, take advantage of many of the things that makes New Brunswick great in relation to our wide open spaces and letting people move around again, letting people get back with their families, all the while, saying if you're going to open as a business, you need to follow the health rules. We have, because of having a solid track record for the last 3 weeks, it's a case of moving our targets ahead a bit so that we'll be announcing new rules this week in order to allow businesses to, and they should be thinking right now how they're going to open under the current public health rules, right? Because we want to see people start to move around. We want to see retailers get in business, and we want to see action back to get our economy moving again. It's very important. Premier, it's crucial.
You implemented what's called the double bubble policy, whereby two households can sort of pick each other, and if they mutually agree, they can sort of join each other's isolation bubble. Any negative reports on that? Other provinces are looking at that closely.
Well, the only real difficulty is if you had 4 siblings and they all lived in the area and it was trying to pick one. That became a bit of an issue. But short of that, it seemed to work very well. And people were, certainly grandparents and grandchildren or siblings to get together with their families in just a 2-bubble scenario. It seemed to work very well and was encouraging. We hope to be able to expand that in the coming days so that we just start to engage in the social aspect of our society. We're seeing concerns certainly and the unrest in that regard, and we need to address that. It's an important part of recovering, knowing that the risk is there that we could see new cases. But I think at this point it's a risk that we must take and move forward.
Let's talk about, you said you're watching the borders. Canada, part of our life is that we can travel freely between provinces. Are you worried about that? Could you close your borders? Are you concerned that someone from another province who have a totally different profile of COVID cases could come to New Brunswick?
Yes, absolutely. And so we are currently monitoring our border, all of our border entrance points. We are stopping cars. We're turning cars back. If there's not a reason to be here through either an essential service provision, either you live here, but there's criteria in regards to whether you can move on. Maybe you're going on to another province, maybe moving through New Brunswick to Nova Scotia or PEI or Newfoundland. So we're looking at all that, but we're tracking people. We're not just, saying have a nice day. We're basically tracking them. We take their information.
Would you do that in the summer? Like New Brunswick is a huge tourism is a huge part of your economy. In the summer, let's say you go a month with no new cases, and I don't know, my family and I say, hey, it's time for us to go vacation in New Brunswick. Do we get turned back in July?
Well, it's not about New Brunswick going a month with no cases. It's about the province next door or the province somewhere else or the state. And what condition they're in, and people coming from there. So we're saying this summer we want New Brunswickers to discover New Brunswick. We want to move around as much as we can throughout our province, and I'm hoping that other provinces will be in a position that we'll be able to look at their condition and say, this is a risk that now we can take. But we're not there yet, so we have to open up, slowly. And at this point, we open up cautiously, protecting our own borders. PEI is in a similar situation. I've had discussions with Premier King, and so we're discussing possible movement there between our provinces, but that's a little early to get there as well.
Okay, so I just want to get that clear. That's fascinating. You have families that are doing the joint bubble, the double bubble. You could maybe do that with provinces depending on their record. So you could say if you live in PEI, if they've hit a benchmark, PEI folks can come to New Brunswick, but Quebec or Ontario, no. Could that happen depending on the scenarios?
You hate to think about that in the free country that we live in, but yes, that is certainly a likely scenario. And I think all of us, and when I work with my colleagues across the country, we all respect we're at different points in this pandemic, and we respect each other's desire and need to focus on their concerns. And I understand the challenges that the big cities have, Montreal, Toronto, that we don't have here in New Brunswick. So we're all unique in that regard, but we all respect our ability to do what we must for our own citizens.
Just quickly, do you think any provinces are opening up too quick? I mean, there's a lot of questions about Quebec. They've had the most number of COVID cases, but the most aggressive timeline to reopen things like schools. What's your take?
Well, I don't think it's fair for me to judge one province or another. They have different scenarios, different conditions. I think that we've had that discussion with the Prime Minister that we're a diverse country. We all have our own unique ways to follow the rules and get back in business. So I would only say that we feel right now it's important for New Brunswick to start an economic recovery focus. It's important for the businesses. It's important for the citizens. We need to get back to normal. We need, in the new normal, I got to add, but we need to start moving again within the province. And we can most effectively and safely do that within the confines of our own province.
Listen, Premier Higgs, always good to have you on the program. Fascinating story. This patchwork is going to get really interesting. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
New Brunswick.